I did wear this shirt on purpose today, okay? I did because I had a sneaking suspicion that I was gonna piss off somebody. And I was like, you know what? Let me make it really clear and make the biggest disclaimer possible. Just to let you know that I do in fact love it when you make fun of me. I think it's great actually. Love when you call me dumb bitch, goofy bitch, big forehead. Oh my God, best day of my life. Go for it. And I just want to put a little lesson out there for some of you weirdos who like to troll in the comment section, okay? You really never know who's behind the other side of the screen that's receiving that comment because their 3-inch Punisher may be harder than concrete from Home Depot, okay? So watch it. Hi everyone, it's Isabella here and welcome back to the channel. Today's video, boy do I have a topic for you all. I have been itching, dying if you will, to talk about the ultimate downfall of multi-level marketing companies. And you're probably like, Belle, babe, what? They're going downhill. They sure are. And I would love to talk about the ultimate downfall of these companies because one thing I want to talk about is, in my opinion, scamming companies are screwing people over big time, but actually they're getting less and less popular and that's a good thing. So we're going to be talking about girl boss businesses, the work for yourself businesses, the Sell Avon, Mary Kay, Monat, Arbonne, iGenius products. They sell you everything. They sell you a dream and they tell you that you can work from home as long as you buy a starter kit and sell it to every person in your vicinity that has oxygen going inside of their body and out. Let me tell you and introduce you to today's topic, the downfall of multi-level marketing, baby. God, I wish I could set off fireworks like a WWE match. This is so exciting. Buckle up, get ready, grab a snack, because we are diving into the downfall of MLMs, also known as multi-level marketing companies. So before you hop into today's video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell button down below so you'll be notified of every single video I post. And now, let's get into it. And before we get started, I want to quickly thank CyberGhost VPN for sponsoring today's video. So fun fact about me, I use a VPN for a multitude of reasons. And another thing I didn't know is your internet traffic can be accessed by many people. Your internet provider, your public Wi-Fi that you have access to, or even websites can track what you do online. But if you use CyberGhost VPN, all of your traffic is encrypted and your IP address is hidden. All you have to do is simply select one out of the over 100 geolocations, which will then encrypt and reroute all of your traffic to a secure server. This way, no one is going to know what you're doing online. CyberGhost also unlocks a lot of geo-restricted content and games, such as your streaming services on Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Disney Plus. You can have access to more by utilizing a VPN. So a couple ways that I like using my VPN is I can watch certain shows that I wouldn't be able to watch anywhere else. And another thing, I actually was able to save money on travel recently. I am booking a work trip right now because I switched my geolocation. I saved a little bit of money. I know, I didn't know you could do that. I thought that was really interesting. By the way, it works on all major devices like Mac OS, Android, Windows, iOS. And on top of that, it protects up to 7 devices, friends or family, you're completely covered. With over 38 million users worldwide and over 20,000 excellent reviews, they're an amazing VPN. So if you guys want to try it out for yourself, go to the link in the description below or pin comment to get started today. For $2.03 a month plus 4 months for free, that is 80% off in total, which is a great deal. And if you're not 100% satisfied, they do have a 45-day money-back guarantee. It's useful for work and fun and so much more. Thank you so much to CyberGhost VPN for sponsoring today's video. And now let's get into it. All right, now let's get started with the conversation of MLMs. Now, I do want to make another quick disclaimer because some people like to get their Fruit of the Looms in a twist, and I want to make this incredibly clear. Number one, this video discusses public information, industry data, and documented claims and allegations. And I am here to just overall discuss this conversation generally because I think that it's actually happening where these companies are performing less and less. And in my opinion, they don't want you to know this. If you guys do or don't remember, if you're new here, originally the commentary, where I started with commentary was I was talking about MLMs, right? I actually previously made a video, a little update video, if you will, talking about a cryptocurrency MLMer, someone who is an influencer that got fined, an entire company that got fined as well, and so much more. And I have made deep dives over the years talking about multi-level marketing companies and how these companies have been a big aspect, I think, for so many people. For example, years and years ago, I remember seeing the Avon in the drawers of my mom, right? My first lipsticks that I used to put on were CoverGirl, Maybelline, and Avon. Yeah, yeah, because like it was something we were all used to, right? The whole motivation for why I started talking about MLMs was because I almost got scammed myself. And that was kind of the kickoff to me wanting to talk about this so passionately. And I wanted to circle back because I think this topic is still very important, is how these companies have eluded and given the vibe to people that people could make good money, that they could become successful or make a little extra that could make their lives easier. And in my opinion, from what I have looked into over the years, and finally to the point where we are at today, it has never been as magical as they have claimed. There's so much misinformation out there. And also, a lot of these companies are not doing good right now because, in my opinion, the curtain is being pulled away, right? And we're seeing that skinny ass man behind the curtain instead of the great Wizard of Oz, okay? We are seeing the actual reality of what's going on with these companies. So I want to take it back a little bit to 2020. I want to talk about how these companies had a massive boom. So if you guys do or don't remember, I've been a yapper for all my life, but in 2020, I was yapping about multi-level marketing companies. And there was a big wave in growth and development of these companies because of the pandemic. Now, this was like the perfect storm to create such a boom in this industry. And honestly, for a second, I didn't really assume that this would drop so quickly. Honestly, I thought it would take a little bit longer, but I was wrong. We saw a massive jump when a lot of people were losing their jobs. I was one of them. I actually lost my job during the pandemic as a waitress, and I didn't have my barista job anymore. I was screwed. Quite frankly, it was very bad. If I remember being very financially desperate, like, gosh, I wish I had a job, or I wish I could pay the bills, shit. I know many people were in those exact same positions where lockdown was happening. COVID was incredibly scary. So many people didn't want to leave their homes. Everything was so expensive. So naturally, this was the perfect case scenario because these companies and these other promoters inside of these companies were able to go and say, hey, we have a solution for you. You're struggling right now. Well, I didn't lose this job. I made this position. I'm a business owner right now. And you know what I want to do? I want to help you. I want to bring you into the sisterhood. All you have to do is spend $100, maybe $200 if you want to be, a big starter, and it's an investment. So don't worry, right? Like, you're going to be just fine. You're going to try the products. You're going to love them because, of course, no MLM product could do wrong in their eyes. And then you're going to try and sell the products as well to other fellow people, your neighbors, your friends, the girls from your church, the random lady through the drive-thru at Wendy's, like anyone that had a pulse pretty much in the Target aisle, you were going to walk up to and speak. That's pretty much how that would go down. And it got to a point then where maybe for some companies, the products weren't really doing enough. And then it was like, well, we also have another opportunity. Not only can you sell products, you recruit people into the company because it's a great opportunity, right? And you haven't made money, but you will. So why don't you recruit more people in? Because it's a good idea. We're all going to make money. Why would you not want to share this immaculate, amazing experience with everyone that could save people? You're doing a disservice by not telling them about this opportunity, which led to many people, from what I saw, recruiting so many of their friends and family. And a lot of them thought, well, shit, I already lost my job, or maybe I'm struggling. What do I have to lose, right? It's just $100. It's just $200. But ultimately, many people didn't realize that what they were stepping into was far darker and deeper than what it was promoted. It wasn't this girlhood that many people experienced, but many experienced allegedly cults, allegedly awful Zoom calls that were berating their downlines, leaders that were benefiting and being the top 1% and making millions of dollars, while hundreds of thousands of young individuals in these companies were actively losing money every single year. But it was a boom because everyone had more time or were so desperate for something, and desperation can lead to naiveness, which then can lead into being able to fall into a scam 10 times easier. And that's where we saw these massive companies that picked up. We saw Monat, who had this huge boom. We saw Arbonne that had a growth when it comes to health and wellness. Like the health and wellness MLMs were popping off, especially because I was practically selling my an asshole, but at that time, like, girl, I was scared. Okay. I got COVID 3 times. It was rough. So it was, the health and wellness, the shampoo, because everyone uses shampoo, right? Then we had the makeup. There were so many things that were so beneficial, and these will never fail, even if the economy is bad. So we saw so many people sucked into these business opportunities. And then we saw the plethora of misinformation that was spread across social media, from Instagram Reels, TikToks, hidden Zoom calls that I used to sneak into all the time and air out to y'all. Like, it was a very big thing. And so we saw this absolute wildfire of misinformation just getting spread by so many people because they thought it was right. And I want to just make this very, very clear. If you were somebody who was taking advantage of that system or a participant, I just want to say, I'm sorry. It was awful. It was brutal. None of you guys deserve that. And so many people fell into it out of pure desperation. And all I got to say is when you are really struggling financially, your anxieties and desperation will make you do some crazy shit. So I understand and I feel for you and I'm so sorry if you lost money. But that was something that kind of led into the culty brainwashing is the negative conversations, or at least the honest conversations about the positives and negatives of these companies weren't exactly enabled. I mean, there were many times where I saw people who would talk about something negative and they were shunned from their team. They weren't allowed to talk about anything bad or negative. They were only supposed to think positively, which created a very vicious cycle and in a total chain where all it is toxic positivity. So a lot of people were struggling to get out or didn't know that they should. And then it ended up being, oh, we'll just buy this product. Oh, we'll get this so that way you hit your bare minimum so you stay in the company. Oh, well, you're so close to this rank, just buy this and it will help you so much. Like you're investing in yourself. So again, we saw more and more people that were investing money that they may not have had off of the influence of maybe headquarters, maybe a Zoom call leader, maybe somebody who was simply just being manipulative for their own personal gain to fund their $1 million mansion and off of the backs of those who are everyday average individuals trying to put food on their table. It just happened. We saw things like retiring your husband, launching your own business, becoming successful, being able to protect yourself from financial danger. So literally, guys, we had one of the most wicked starts when it comes to MLMs, and all of these companies had crazy numbers, crazy starter kits, crazy success. Even a lot of these major leaders that we saw throughout the entire industry were making dumb money. We saw trips, we saw yachts, and some of this content that these top 1% leaders made were utilized for marketing purposes to entice more people to join in. Because if it happened to a few of them, well, it surely could happen to everyone else. In my opinion, the system was set up to fail everyone, but it only benefited the top people who, own the company, and also the top people who actually had everyone in their downlines. Now, I want to highlight the grounds for an MLM versus the pyramid scheme according to the FTC. So the Federal Trade Commission, if you guys don't know, that's my baddie. I love listening to that information, talks about the differences between a pyramid scheme and a multi-level marketing company. Now, I'm going to tell y'all full transparency. I have a firm belief that MLMs in general, it does not matter if they're not a pyramid scheme. I do not like them. I will never support them. I do not think they're good. I don't think they're beneficial long-term. I think there's a billion other things you could do to start something on your own. Okay. But that is my opinion. And I'm always going to make that clear. I want to give you the differentiators between the two. So again, MLM, multi-level marketing company, is a business structure where sellers can earn money from selling products, services, and recruiting people. However, the FTC has long warned consumers that some MLMs are illegal pyramid schemes and that people should be cautious before joining. For example, there are some times where MLMs will claim that they make a lot in sales, but they're not actually selling a lot of products to real customers. It's only people inside of the MLM. Some companies have been exposed for that exact problem. We have seen people have their income depend on strictly recruiting. There have been some companies that have been fined for even misinformation when in regard to health claim, even earning claims, lavish lifestyle, and completely violating FTC guidelines, but additionally their own company's guidelines. And there are many companies that, again, have been caught where the majority of the money and income was pulled from sales from internal people inside of the MLM and recruitment. And that is such a sad reality. But sometimes it's hard to actually expose that unless somebody accidentally slips up, shares some information. Or for example, when like Monat had a back office issue where they didn't have a firewall up and they had a lot of information that was exposing a lot of shit that was, in my opinion, showing the vibe that they were a pyramid scheme. Now, another random statistic I want to throw out there that many of you guys are familiar with, but if you're not, a lot of MLMs will have things called an income disclosure statement. Now, a lot of them aren't required to have it. Some places may require them, some may not. But in the US, it doesn't look like we're required to have an income disclosure statement. But it's pretty much where they can choose to share every single tier of an MLMer and then how much potentially they're making on average every single year. And what we notice is majority of the time, it's around 90 to 99% of participants and MLMs either make maybe a couple $100s a year, if not nothing. Like majority of people are losing money, if anything, which is really unfortunate. And mind you, if they're making a couple hundred or so, that is not including taxes. That's not including the starter kit costs. There's so many things that can make it to where that number is going to end up being zero. And that's a pattern that we notice throughout the entire industry. So this isn't just like a one random instance. It's a very similar pattern. And so I've always wondered, well, why has this been such an ongoing thing? Misinformation or people pushing and alluding to something as better than what it is what leads to this absolute boom with MLMs. Now, I want to talk about next the cult mechanics and how we noticed everything develop. And like I said, desperation leads to sometimes naiveness and more openness to potentially being scammed, which could lead to a lot more people falling into a system. But I have always had this belief that there have been a lot of cult behaviors and tendencies that have shaped the way people were sucked into becoming a part of multi-level marketing companies. For example, a lot of moms we notice are joining multi-level marketing companies. And I think that can come down to loneliness and again, naiveness. When you're looking for that community, sometimes you may be more desperate to fall and find one, which if you find a community, you may be more stuck into staying. I think we can see that when it comes to toxic relationships. I've been in one where I didn't really have a lot of friends or connections and I stuck with that person because they were the only one that I knew. And even though I was living in hell, it was a hell I knew. It was something I was comfortable with. And I believe that was a similar tactic that happened knowingly or unknowingly in these companies is people were so desperate for that connection and craving that kind of sisterhood. And that was something that was used in marketing purposes for many companies that it led for people to want to stay because they had something that they were a part of, that they could identify with, that they were able to promote and feel like that they were developing into something greater than themselves. Another aspect is I think the structure of this was very gamified. When we talk about ranks, bonuses, levels, growth, even trips, a lot of this stuff made so many different levels where it almost became, I would say, addictive. So when you guys know, like if you're playing like a game, I've done this before, where I'll play a game and there's so many little like facets of a game and I'm like locked into my iPad, okay? And like it's 2 a.m. and I'm like, oh my, what the hell? I was so locked in because there were so many things I wanted to accomplish. And I had to go, well, okay, girl, you got to go to bed. Like look at the time, gotta go night-night, okay? Sometimes you get so locked in and sometimes that process becomes addictive because the Zoom calls and the conversations were always so hype. They were like ready for you to be able to go, let's go guys, like we're gonna make so much money. You just have to believe it's gonna be you.
All right, I'm gonna touch on 10 values that make up the DNA of a Maxwell leader. And I want you guys to listen and apply the following values that I'm going to share with you so that you're not just gonna change your world with this, you can change the world with these values if you immediately apply them. Everything that I'm going to say is worthless if you don't apply it. So if you're not going to apply it, you can just get off the call. You're going to lose. If no one's bursted your bubble yet, I'm going to tell you now, you're going to lose at some point in your life, in your business. You're going to lose. Okay. Sorry to break it to you. But there's no such thing as a person that hasn't lost. And there's no such thing as a person that hasn't failed. And if you start with that foundation, you're never going to let little things get into your way of when a bad thing happens. And with the wrong decision that's happened to you and the right decision that you decide to make after it, you have the opportunity to change someone's life who has that same exact problem that you guys are in this community where we share podcasts every single day. You have an upline or sideline or crossline that posts a podcast on their story every single day. But I want to ask you, how many times have you ignored the podcasts that are coming into your chat every single day? Get in the habit of playing a podcast while you're brushing your teeth, taking a shower, taking a piss, and then you're done. Exceed expectations. The expectations of a company. I want to ask you guys, what is your expectation in this business? What's your long-term vision that you want to see here? The expectations that you guys have in your businesses and in your life, that shouldn't be your ceiling, that needs to be your floor. And I see this all the time. People are mapping out MMP. They're like, you need 2 active lines, 300 PV and 1200 PV. That's the floor. Go for 4 active lines, 1200 PV, and then your GV is just going to be double all of the other things that your team is doing. Every rank expectation should be the floor, not your highest goal. If MMB is 4 active lines, 500 PV, 5,000 GV, why aren't you going for 16 active lines, 3,000 PV, 8,000 GV?
So it got you hyped and the motivation was there. Like that intense feeling made you go, yeah, I really can do it. And then lastly, not only that, but there was some toxic positivity that was framed into cultiness that made you feel bad for failing. And this is another thing that actually honestly inspired me to make my own podcast. Funny enough, I made a podcast years ago because I was heavily inspired by the toxic positivity in a very opposite way. I saw the toxic positivity content and went, oh my God, this is really fucked. I want content that is going to inspire me, make me feel better about myself, not feel like shit. And then I went, well, then I'll talk on a podcast. Why not? Because the content was framed around failure and you couldn't fail. And of course you're going to fail if you quit. Why would you ever quit? You're never going to go anywhere if you stop. I would see some leaders that would dismiss questions or any curiosity when it comes to the problems within the system. The entire examples I would see reacting to people who left the MLMs would be like, you didn't work hard enough, you didn't believe enough, you didn't show up. It was always blaming on on the victim. So I feel like when we would see someone get ostracized and lose that sisterhood, not have that connection anymore, feel like a failure, many people wanted to avoid that feeling. And so they would end up staying longer, which again would reinforce this cult mentality that allowed for these companies, in my opinion, to keep growing. And another thing I want to talk about is the trainings and indoctrination into becoming a leader. There was such a hyper focus into becoming something that was a powerhouse and strong and leading. And the thing is it taught everyone to think that they were capable of it. Now, that sounds a little intense. Hear me out though. Not everyone is meant to be a leader, okay? I think everyone has their strengths, but I believe that wiped individuality and wanted everyone to think the exact same. So for example, when we had these weekly like Zoom calls, the constant trainings, the bonus shares, like everything, like providing new incentives to get people to give a shit, being told to ignore the haters and anyone that was against these MLMs were just mean and jealous of you. Like it allowed to again further that cult mentality. Nothing says, oh, we're not a cult, like telling everyone to continue to go and grow when you have severe levels of credit card debt. Yay! So we talk about toxic positivity, the love bombing and everything. That is how we saw the crazy boom and rush of multi-level marketing companies from 2020 that kicked on until later. And as we always see, when a toxic system grows, there's always something that's going to have to slip and finally fall apart because not everyone is going to stay in forever. And then finally, we saw the start to the downfall of MLMs, which is the intensity of what I like to say, the anti-MLM movement. So I'm very proud to say I was a part of this a while ago, where a lot of people who essentially started growing as commentary creators and just content creators in general started talking about the problems within this, which led to more exposure and kind of breaking some of that cultish mentality. For example, let's say if you're hopping into like a Zoom call, right? And that Zoom call, there's a leader that's saying, look, you need to do this. You need to do this because of that, and trying to claim that we're all liars. If I get on and say, here's this exact same Zoom call, evidence to support an opposite claim and perspectives on why I think they're wrong, it kind of breaks that belief system a little bit or makes people go, now wait a minute. And so what happened is we had leaders that would essentially talk about the haters and would mention content creators like myself, which then allowed for newfound traffic. And then people would find this content and go, wait a minute, maybe I'm in something I shouldn't be. And then this content essentially started becoming more mainstream. And then it kind of led into more shame. It became more of a joke to be the hey girl or the boss babe in the DMs. It became more weird to sell products like this. A lot of the products even were exposed to some people that weren't working well. For example, there were allegations that Monat made your hair fall out. There were allegations on Arbonne's products. There were allegations on so many different companies and how they worked. So this just became more of a broader topic. And like I've always said, the more we talk, the better we are with like learning more. And this was able to kind of break that barrier and make people kind of potentially change their minds, or at least look at the opposite side. And second of all, we also had regulators like the FTC that started actually cracking down on multi-level marketing companies. When we saw this wave of pushing to become a boss babe and with companies that were talking about making money from home, we also saw that some of these companies pushed way too far. Some of these promoters did too much. For example, in my notes, in 2024, staff report on MLM income disclosure statements basically said a lot of these disclosures are confusing, incomplete, and emphasize top earners while most make little. And in 2025, the FTC continued moving towards stronger rules around earning claims and proposed rulemaking documents discussing enforcement history and MLM-related earning claims issues. We also saw there were other fines, there were letters that were given warnings that were pretty much telling the companies, look, you're doing too much, your promoters are doing something wrong, you need to handle it right now. And then we suddenly saw a big change and shift when it comes to just the world of social media. And as further conversation happened, more people started waking up. And then we saw there was a lot of filtering through new recruits and new people in these companies. And after a bit, it started to trickle off. For example, right over here, the industry-wide decline started happening. Data showed that direct selling retail sales were $40.5 billion in 2022. That's a lot. And then we dropped down to $36.7 billion in 2023, which is a pretty drastic decline. And then finally, in 2024, Industry Overview Fact Sheet listed $34.7 billion in retail sales from 2024. So I know this isn't depicting like MLMs are dead from that, but it is showing a drastic difference when it comes to just success with these companies and how their income has dropped. And I actually want to take a perfect example of this, which is one that we really know, which is Monat. Now, I really quickly want to show you guys examples of the income disclosure statements and how this stuff fell apart and how we see the changes in the money as they show from their own public stuff. Perfect example of the income disclosure statement with Monat, which is the hair care company. And to me, I think this is a great example of a really good income disclosure statement versus one that was complete and utter shit. Sorry, I have to hold my iPad really interesting to make this happen. The average annual income for all U.S. market partners at all ranks, which include active and inactive, so keep that in mind, people who who are actively in the company and people that didn't. It was $831 the entire year. Now, this is in 2021, mind you, after the big peak when it comes to the pandemic boom, if you will. 39% of US market partners were not active in 2021 and therefore didn't earn any commission. So, okay, let's say around 40% of people weren't active. Let's keep that in mind. So if we go into the bare bones basic level of being a market partner, you just bought the starter kit and that's it. It says there were 93.36% of people in the company that were part of this level. High annual gross earnings was $21,889. The low was nothing, and the average was $144. Median annual gross earnings was $21 for the year. Now, I've always made this clear. The reason why I like talking about median is I feel like it's more of an accurate depiction, in my opinion, of the representation of what you're going to actually expect, because averages, like for example, let's say someone had a crazy abnormally high like amount of money, a big team, that's probably potentially going to skew the average to be a little bit higher if majority of people are hardly making anything. You know what I'm saying? Let's say the next rank, right? The next rank, only 3.26% of people are a managing market partner. The high annual gross earning was $32,415. Then we have 127, which is the low annual gross earnings if you were a part of this. The average was $1,963 and the median was $1,686, not including a starter kit, or even maybe you started the year previously, or even if you started the year prior, not including taxes, fees, everything to stay afloat in this. So that's still not cutting it, right? Let's look over to 2024 now, which is the most recent one that we have been able to see that's actually on the current Monat website. The average annual income for all US market partners at all ranks, which includes active and inactive, in 2024 was $758. 41% of US market partners were not active in 2024 and therefore didn't earn any commission. So now let's scroll down and look at the market partners. 94.27% of people in the company are at this rank. We have the high annual gross earnings, which is $22,702. Now get this, you guys. We have low annual gross earnings is 0, average is 131, median annual gross is $19. That is a crazy drop, you guys. 131. That's pretty shitty. That's pretty damn bad. And even still, then we have the next one where it's only 0.33, not 3%, 0.33% of people are at the second rank. High annual gross earnings is $9,376. The low annual gross earnings is $25. Average annual is $1,186. The median annual gross earnings is $971. And the average monthly gross earnings monthly are $100 for this rank. Allegedly, based on available reports, Monat Global generated approximately $800 million in yearly revenue during the 2020 to 2021 period. And now we don't 100% have complete accuracy on this, but from what I'm reading, it says in 2024, Monat Global faced significant revenue declines, with reporting suggests 2024 revenue between $145 million and $600 million, marking a substantial drop from previous years. While the company reported paying out over $40 million in commissions, 45% of those market partners earned no commission at all. So that right there is a perfect example, in my opinion, of the significant drop when it comes to just numbers, or even just looking at some of their events, right? On the bottom of the income disclosure statement of 2021, it showed there was the events that they were hosting, right? And it says 0.45% of the 298,952 market partners participated in the Monat Motor Club, which is the car shit that you can get in these companies. It's the glorified, hey, oh my God, you earn the car payment, but you have to get it in your name. I know, so fun, so exciting, what a nice gift. And what's so fascinating is in the 2024, that aspect is not shown in this at all. I don't hear anything involving discussing the amount of people that are in the company anymore. That's interesting. Now, on the 2021 one, it says 8,872 market partners with career ranks of MMB, AMM, and MM were eligible to earn a trip to Miami, Florida for the new leadership experience, which 232 people earned. They have about 10,000 market partners who had a certain rank were eligible for a Punta Cana, Mexico trip, and only 1,392 participated and earned the trip. Then we have 73,246 MPs with career ranks of MMP or above. They were eligible to earn a trip to Las Vegas, Nevada for our reunion incentive trip, which 7,601 earned that said trip. Now, in comparison to the newest income disclosure statement, the bottom of the 2024 says 101, wow, market partners with career ranks of AED or above as of December 2023 were eligible to earn a trip to Miami, Florida for our Director Circle 2024 incentive trip. 49 people earned. Holy shit. Y'all, can I just say, this is the best shit show I've ever seen in my entire life. I am not one to cheer on for people's losses unless they're awful, evil people. This is the time where I'm like, thank fuck. Honestly, I hoped for these days years ago as a mouthy 19-year-old talking about MLMs, okay? Then we have 439 market partners who rank advanced to MMB, AMM, and MM between January 24 and June 24 were eligible to earn a trip to Miami for the new leadership experience, which 138 earned. 2,548 market partners with career ranks of MMB or above as of July 2024 were eligible to earn a trip to Tulum, which 432 earned the trip. So I think it's safe to say that the comparison between 21 to 2024 shows a drastic, and I mean a drastic change. And I think it's obvious when I don't see the total market partners or any information on there anymore like it used to be. But that's to show that that's just one of the many examples of MLMs who have significantly shifted and just aren't hitting the same anymore. You know what I mean? Now, another thing that we noticed with the downfall of MLMs is some of them turning off their entire MLM system or actually going completely public. For example, Beachbody, which is actually known as Body, decided to go public and then decided to cut off their MLM system. Body, formerly known as Beachbody, announced a transition from MLM structure to a single level affiliate model. So pretty much essentially instead of joining and buying a starter kit and trying to recruit people in the system and sell products, now you can have like an affiliate link and then you may be able to get a small commission, but that's it. And that transition milestone, January 1st of 2025. Ronan Fields, potato, I don't know, transitioned to an affiliate powered system that was a direct to consumer model that was effective September 1st, 2024. So I would like to point out that the fact that so many massive companies like this decided to change their entire business model after, in my opinion, years of gloating about how this was an amazing opportunity, you can make so much money. It's not shocking in the slightest because the success is not really prominent from what I've seen, but also it has literally been draining people's bank accounts for so long. Like, how are we surprised? And after so long, when we notice these massive companies suddenly cutting it down, a lot of these corporations are wanting to do that for their own personal benefit. And when we had people who are top leaders that benefited heavily from these companies, all of a sudden they disappear and go, oh, tough shit, good luck. I think it's safe to say that the system is not exactly as successful or wonderful as we thought it was. Now, why I think also they're not hitting the same is more mainstream information. Public shame does in fact work, and there's less and less wanting to be exhausted anymore. And also there is a big shift when it comes to the industry. Unfortunately, we are seeing new scams that are actually replacing the MLM ones, in my opinion, but this is how we have seen the ever-flowing change going from toxic Zoom calls that were quiet to now everything is open in the public and not everyone is as enticed to join anymore. Whenever we see one scam, there's always a time where it fades out and then it jumps into something brand new. For example, there were many MLM leaders that I actually talked about previously who are a part of, in my opinion, different grifts now. We're seeing people that are becoming AI influencers or selling courses. We see the MRR courses where they're selling you a $500 course that you could resell the same thing for that teaches you how to be a business owner. Conveniently, all of the individuals that are becoming hyper course coaches are now selling you new stuff. And it's really interesting as well to notice these same people suddenly forget their entire MLM past and go, oh, hey, new idea. A lot of these big leaders suddenly found something else new for you to offer you now. We have AI influencers, coaching, investment trading, and a lot of this has the MLM DNA all over it still. We still have these individuals that have the same toxic positivity. We still have the people that are selling bullshit and selling a fake dream, having the same exact message of, oh, this is the way that you can become financially free and retire your husband by just buying this course. You can learn how to do anything. I have years of business experience, MLM, and I'm going to show you how to do it too. They are still filtering through new grifts as we have seen time go on. And to me, this goes on to show that this was not as successful as we thought. Some of them even have come out and say that they weren't as successful as they claimed, but they were trying their hardest. This is not new by any means. Even for example, now we also see more investment trainings. There's more subscription-based coaching. Some of these people still are multi-millionaires, but have maybe moved off to different companies or trying to find their next grift in order to stay afloat. So they're now manifesting into something new that's probably going to fall apart here in the next, let's say, 5 years, if not longer. Now, I don't think MLMs are going to 100% disappear for a very long time if they were to do so. But this is what I'm saying with, I think there is a downfall, but we are seeing that new growth and development into an entirely different area. And many leaders that I've actually highlighted before are doing different things. For example, a big leader with iGenius, her name is Afnan Khalifa, actually has blown up on TikTok and Instagram for motivational videos, fake podcast videos, and now she apparently is selling a course and other random little things, which who knows what the in there. We have Jasmine Elizabeth, who is another former leader of Monat and was an iGenius, now is a Christian creator who is selling courses as well. We have other leaders who have allegedly bought teams from other companies so that way they can stay on top and have that consistent source of income. We've seen some people who actually were former leaders who suddenly decided to quit and stop completely. Some of them have their own business mentorship and have taken that money to develop legitimate businesses, which is something they should have done a long time ago. All I'm going to say is a lot of these people who heavily profited, in my opinion, off of the downfall of many, many individuals underneath them are now able to stay afloat successfully because of the other grifts that they're on, or they're taking advantage of the grift money to do something that's actually legitimate, which is so unfortunate because I'm always here to support new growth, but not like that. And even with some of these companies, they're having serious internal issues as well. Like Monat, for example, has had a lot of internal issues with Stewart. So some of these companies are literally caving into their own evilness and greed, just from what I think. So in order to wrap this up, what do I think about MLMs in general? One, I want to say if you have been interested or someone's trying to recruit you, please be really careful. And it sounds like an MLM or sketchy or doesn't feel too good. Please trust your gut and dig into it. That's what I did. And I was able to avoid being scammed, which allowed me to talk about it today on this channel. Also be considerate of things like if the pitch is actually emphasizing more income than product, if you're told to ignore negativity, if you have a lot of cult characteristics that are embodied in a lot of the coaching and trainings, please be incredibly cautious of that. When there's a hefty amount of investment and there's not a lot of evidence to support the claim, or even when it comes to external scams like MRR or the courses that some of these coaches are selling, they don't really have any other examples of business. They just say they do. There's not enough substantial evidence to support any claim. And sometimes if you approach some of these people with evidence, they still deny, and move on. And that should be a huge red flag to you. So moral of the story, I do think there has been a big downfall and change. Do I think they're gone? No. Do I think that we're seeing a shift in the industry? Absolutely. I think scams are always going to exist, unfortunately, but they're going to look a little bit differently and have a different mask on top of them. And this is one that is having a mask revealed and maybe put onto an entirely different grift. So that was it for today's deep dive. What do you guys think? I hope you guys enjoyed this little deep dive and video about the downfall of the multi-level marketing companies. Comment down below your thoughts. Also, you guys don't forget to check out the sponsor of today's video at the link in the description below and pinned comment to get your VPN for $2.03 a month plus 4 months for free, which is 84% off. Go to the link in the description below to get started. It's definitely worth it. Stay safe. Have a phenomenal weekend. I love you guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.